Welcome to Unleashed, where we break down the stories shaping our world like never before. Today, we dive into 4 explosive global developments you need to know. First, Europe tightens the screws on Russia with its toughest sanctions yet. A lower oil price cap and a crackdown on shadow fleets aim to choke Moscow's war chest. Meanwhile in New York, a diplomatic storm brews as Israel refuses visas for UN humanitarian leaders working in Gaza, sparking outrage amid a crisis described as beyond vocabulary. Conditions in Gaza are collapsing, aid workers are being denied entry, and the death toll has surpassed 58,000. The world is asking, who's responsible? And in Washington, President Donald Trump unleashes sweeping deregulation, rolling back Biden-era environmental rules in the name of national security. Critics call it a free pass for polluters. The White House says it's about energy dominance. Stay tuned as we unpack these power plays, their hidden stakes, and what they mean for the future. Hit subscribe, smash that like button, and let's get unleashed. Europe tightens the screws on Russia with toughest sanctions yet. On a brisk Friday morning in Brussels, the European Union unveiled one of its toughest sanctions packages yet against Russia, signaling that Europe's resolve to support Ukraine remains unshaken. The measures, aimed squarely at cutting Moscow's lifeline, take dead aim at Russia's energy revenues and its covert shadow fleet of ships that have been helping it skirt previous restrictions. Kaja Kallas, the EU's foreign policy chief, didn't mince words. The message is clear: Europe will not back down in its support for Ukraine. The EU will keep raising the pressure until Russia ends its war, she declared in a statement that reverberated across European capitals. These fresh sanctions come as the war grinds into its 4th year, and as Russian forces intensify their assaults on Ukrainian cities. The new package lowers the oil price cap, a critical lever against Russia's economy, and bans transactions involving the Nord Stream gas pipelines. It also targets more vessels suspected of helping Moscow circumvent restrictions. The European Commission had initially proposed slashing the oil price cap from $60 to $45 per barrel, a figure well below market rates. After heated negotiations, the 27 EU member states settled on just under $48. The intent is clear: choke Russia's ability to fund its war machine. For President Vladimir Putin, oil remains the crown jewel of Russia's economy, a financial fortress that has so far allowed the Kremlin to bankroll its forces without sparking runaway inflation or a currency collapse at home. In 2023, Western allies imposed a $60 per barrel cap on Russian oil sales, but it was largely symbolic. Most of Moscow's crude sold for less. This time, Europe wants to make the cap bite. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed the move, calling it timely and necessary. He vowed to align Ukraine's own sanctions with the EU's and promised additional measures soon. All infrastructure of Russia's war must be blocked, he said. The sanctions also attempt to close a critical loophole: the export of Russian crude through third countries. By banning these indirect transactions, the EU hopes to undercut the elaborate networks Moscow uses to funnel oil through global markets. Yet the road ahead is not without hurdles. The EU had hoped to rally the group of 7 nations behind the tougher cap, but surging oil prices, driven in part by turmoil in the Middle East and resistance from Washington, where the Trump administration balked, meant Europe had to go it alone. Still, for Brussels and Kiev, the message rings loud and clear: the economic war on Russia is far from over, and the pressure will only intensify until the guns fall silent. Israel tightens restrictions on UN officials amid Gaza humanitarian crisis. In a move that has sparked fresh tensions with the United Nations, Israel has refused to renew visas for the heads of at least 3 UN agencies operating in Gaza, a decision that UN officials say is linked to their efforts to protect Palestinian civilians in the besieged territory. The officials affected include the local leaders of the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, and the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric confirmed on Wednesday. Tom Fletcher, the UN's humanitarian chief, told the Security Council that these visa denials were more than bureaucratic delays. ways, they were direct retaliation for the UN's advocacy role. Each time we report on what we see, we face threats of further reduced access to the civilians we are trying to serve, Fletcher said. Nowhere today is the tension between our advocacy mandate and delivering aid greater than in Gaza. According to Fletcher, Israel is deliberately shortening or refusing visa renewals in response to UN reports that highlight violations of international humanitarian law. Visas are not renewed or reduced in duration by Israel, explicitly in response to our work on protection of civilians, he emphasized. Mounting strain between Israel and the UN. Israel's UN mission said it was looking into the issue, but relations between Israel and UN agencies have been rocky for years, particularly with UNRWA, which Israel has accused of fostering anti-Israel sentiment and colluding with Hamas. Those allegations intensified after Hamas' October 7, 2023 attack, when Israeli leaders claimed UNRWA had been infiltrated by Hamas operatives, and even that some staff members participated in the attacks. UNRWA has strongly denied the accusations, but Israel has since banned the agency from operating in its territory, and its Commissioner General, Philippe Lazzarini, is barred from entering Gaza. The other two UN officials now in limbo were identified as Jonathan Whitall, a South African humanitarian expert working with OCHA, and Ajit Sunghay, a British-educated lawyer leading OHCHR operations in Gaza. A humanitarian catastrophe beyond vocabulary. At Wednesday's meeting, Fletcher painted a grim picture of life in Gaza. Food supplies are dwindling, people are starving, and those desperate enough to search for food risk being shot. Conditions in Gaza are beyond vocabulary, Fletcher told the council, accusing Israel, as the occupying power, of failing in its obligations under the Geneva Conventions to ensure basic necessities for civilians. The UN says its mission in Gaza is twofold: to deliver aid and to speak out against violations of humanitarian law. But as Israel tightens its grip on access, those responsibilities are becoming harder to fulfill. Israel pushes back. OCHA has abandoned neutrality. Israel, however, is not backing down from its stance. In a sharp rebuttal at the UN Security Council, Roit Shapur Ben Naftali, political coordinator at Israel's UN mission, accused OCHA of abandoning its impartial role. OCHA continues to abandon all semblance of neutrality and impartiality in its statements and actions, despite claiming otherwise, she charged. Ben Naftali reminded the Council of the context often missing from international criticism: the October 7 attacks, which killed about 1,200 Israelis and resulted in the abduction of around 250 hostages by Hamas. Instead, we're presented with a narrative that forces Israel into a defendant's chair, while Hamas, the very cause of this conflict and the very instigator of suffering of Israelis but also of Palestinians, goes unmentioned, unchallenged, and immune to condemnation, she said. Mounting civilian death toll and access restrictions. Meanwhile, the human cost in Gaza continues to climb. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, more than 58,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began, a staggering figure that includes both combatants and civilians, though the ministry says over half were women and children. The UN Human Rights Office confirmed Thursday that its top official for the occupied Palestinian territories has been denied entry into Gaza since February 2025. Unfortunately, this is not unusual. Aid workers, UN staff, journalists, and others have been denied access to Gaza, said Ravina Shamdasani, the agency's chief spokesperson in Geneva. The restrictions have only deepened as tensions escalate. Fletcher revealed that Israel is not granting security clearances for UN personnel, leaving critical humanitarian operations paralyzed. Alarmingly, 56% of denied entries in 2025 were for emergency medical teams, doctors and responders tasked with saving lives. Hundreds of aid workers have been killed, and those who continue to work endure hunger, danger and loss, like everyone else in the Gaza Strip, Fletcher said. Accusations of bias and anti-Semitism. The friction between Israel and the UN is not new but has taken an increasingly personal tone. Israel has accused a UN-backed commission of inquiry investigating alleged war crimes in Gaza of bias and anti-Semitism, a charge that gained momentum after all three commission members recently resigned. It has also targeted Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, who accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, an allegation Israel and its ally, the United States, vehemently reject. In a rare step, the Trump administration imposed sanctions on Albanese, branding her as hostile and biased.